What's up, Baylor fans? This is abnormal for us so far this season, but this game Saturday is so special and so pivotal for Baylor and so exciting that I had to get a Kansas State insider with us to break down Wildcats coming to Waco to take on the Baylor Bears. Before I bring him in, thank you so much to Gather & Co. Kitchen and Bath for their support of Please Bear with me. Call my friend Kelly Falkenberry over there. If you're trying to renovate an outdoor space, a bathroom, any part of your house that needs some work, they want to make sure your house feels like a home, whether it's that specialized bath that your mom or your dad who's living with you can access safely, or it's a great space outside, some furniture, and maybe an outdoor kitchen. Watch these college football games in October outside with the people you love the most. Call my friends Gather & Co. here in Central Texas. Want to welcome in someone who I've recently been introduced to. Very excited to have him on. Please bear with me on the special bonus episode on a Monday. Joe Tillery of the Joe Tillery Show, Kansas State Wildcat Insider. Joe, I reached out to an X account who I've got a little friendly Avery Johnson wager with, and I said, hey, who's the guy? If I'm going to talk to anybody about Kansas State football and get some insight, who should I talk to? And he immediately said, man, get Joe. So thank you so much for doing this, man. Welcome to Please Bear With Me.
Hey, man, it's an honor, and I appreciate being able to represent the Cats here.
Let's go. Joe, tell everybody, and I'll let you do it again at the end, but just for starters, what you do and where people can find your content.
Yes, sir. So mostly just kind of talking ball about the Cats. I feel like that's the best way to brand myself. You know, it's nothing too serious, nothing too strict, but just making videos about basketball, football, a little bit of everything. On my YouTube channel, it's just my name, Joe Tillery. And then obviously linked up there is my X as well. Just basically whatever comes to mind, rolling with that. But also do some work covering the Big 12 for Heartland College Sports. So be sure and check us out.
There we go. Sweet. We've had Pete on some of our shows here before, so I love that. That's awesome. Glad you're doing that, man. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, I really want to get a pulse on the feelings of K-State alumni and fans. You know, I can only imagine, and you can correct me, it's probably a weird blend, right? I'm certain there must be some disappointment when you're top 25 coming into the season. I mean, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the conference, a quarterback with an insane kind of athletic profile, high ceiling, a lot of expectations, and then to drop that game in Dublin and then drop a couple after that. I imagine there's some disappointment, but with Dylan Edwards coming back and looking pretty good against, I know UCF's not exactly the class of the Big 12, but like getting a win when you need it. What is this fan base feeling about the Wildcats right now?
Well, it's a great question, and I think you laid it out perfectly. You know, you could live with the loss in Dublin. Obviously, you don't want to. Everybody wants to win that game, but you understand, okay, Iowa State's going to be a Big 12 championship contender.
Right.
Elite quarterback, elite defense. That's not an easy game out of the gates. The issue is when you come back and you look like absolute garbage against teams that you really should have no business being in a one-score game with. I mean, they're one drive away, which was an Avery Johnson masterclass. The issue is we had to use it against North Dakota. That's not great. That can't happen, especially when you're a top 25 teams with literal college football playoff expectations. And then you come back home and you play Army the next week and you look even worse. And it's horrible. Everything's bad. And so going into this UCF game, I think you look at it and you're like, even though I personally don't think UCF's, they're not there yet. It's year one under a new head coach. The team's got some good things. They've got some issues. They're figuring things out as they go. But K-State looked like they didn't belong on a Division I football field through the first 4 weeks. I mean, Dublin looked a little bit better than the others, but did not look good. So you can't really afford to overlook anybody. So an undefeated team coming into your house, there's a 50-50 shot, even though K-State's favored, that, hey, we might get blown out by 2 or 3 scores here. Weirdly enough, it doesn't happen. The Cats look like a completely different team, like the team I think most of us expected them at the start of the season. And a lot of that can be attested to Dylan Edwards, but it just felt like everything was a completely different recipe than what we've seen the first 4 weeks. So you go through the first few weeks of the season and it's, all right, hey, this isn't our year. We'll see you guys in basketball season. Might not be as good. That's okay. It was honestly almost phoning in the season, and you've only played one Big 12 football game, which kind of sounds insane, but you go out there and you smack UCF. You look like the better team. The score doesn't necessarily tell the full story because you kind of fell apart in the third quarter defensively, gave up some huge plays down the stretch, but Kansas State played with energy. They actually it was enjoyable to watch the football game. And that's a different thing than it's been for the first 4 games. So I think most K-State fans are cautiously optimistic about what's to come.
What do you attribute the struggles early in the season to? Admittedly, and I'm sure a lot of Baylor fans are like me, I did watch just about that entire game against Iowa State in Dublin. I actually picked Iowa State to win that game. So that game went pretty much how I figured. Close game. Both quarterbacks made some big plays. Iowa State pulls it out towards the end. That game looked like, okay, that's what I thought those two teams were. As you pointed out, that little stretch immediately after, I didn't watch any of those games, but I'm checking the score going, what is going on with this Wildcats team? What do you attribute that slump to? And then what did you see kind of other than like, oh, Dylan Edwards is back, which is obvious, and he's huge. That's a huge piece of that team. But what else do you attribute that kind of slump to and then the turnaround this past weekend?
Well, it's interesting because honestly, everybody takes a little slice of the pie. I think you can blame some on the quarterback, some on the coaching, some on play calling, some on defense not being able to tackle. Like there's 7 or 8 different things you could say. If you had a pie chart, every single one of these would have a big piece of the pie. The biggest thing for me, and I stand by it, the K-State offensive line has been an absolute nightmare for the first 4 weeks of the season. Obviously, you go into the season with George Fitzpatrick, Ohio State transfer, has a medical issue and hasn't played yet this season. We don't know what that health situation looks like, though he is back with the team and working towards a return, it sounds like. So that was a huge shot in the left. That was a big issue to overcome. But the issue is you have guys from Penn State. You've got guys from Pitt. You've got guys that have played high-level football elsewhere, and they don't look good at all. The veterans you have back don't look good. Like, you could honestly count on basically, you could say 1 of 5 players in the O-line has looked above average or even like a league average player. And I don't care if you have Colin Klein calling the plays, Matt Wells calling the plays, or if you have the best offensive coordinator in football calling the plays. There's not what's going to happen on that side. I truly think that, there's a little bit of everything that went wrong, but if the O-line play were a little bit better out of the gates, yeah, you might flip some of those 1-score games. That said, you don't want to be in a 1-score game, especially with teams like Army, especially with teams like North Dakota, where they live to upset you. They want to smack you in the mouth. A 1-score game to them is like, this is exactly what we could have drawn up. We would have taken this every day of the week if offered. But I truly think the O-line play was my biggest issue. There's some choices at quarterback where I feel like whether it's Avery Johnson, the coaching staff, I'm of the belief it's more of the coaching staff, considering what we saw against UCF. It felt like there was almost a conscious effort to say, Avery, we don't want you taking hits, which to me is ludicrous because you have a guy with 4.3 speed, and that's his best aspect. Like, you're not going to ask Lamar Jackson to be a pocket quarterback. You're not going to ask these guys that are elite outside the pocket to just, let's hang out, let's wait, let's survey the field. I'm an Avery Johnson guy. I think he's showed steps in the passing game already this season, but everything is going to be easier when the kid's averaging 6 yards, 7 yards a carry the second there's daylight. So I think a little bit of that, but this week was a 180. I feel like Avery looked better. Obviously, Dylan Edwards helps schematically. He helps your best player on the football field. But in general, it felt like everything was a little more spaced out, and every quarterback in America is going to be a little bit better when there's more room to make decisions, to fit in some of those throws. And it just felt like the team stopped playing scared. They didn't play like, hey, we're a top 25 team. We have to uphold this. We're supposed to do this and this. It's, what are we going to do today? If we're going to lose, we're going to lose, but let's go out there and actually put our effort forward and play with that K-State effort you've seen with the Bill Snyder teams and such. And he hadn't really shown that effort through 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much of what you said sounds vaguely familiar for fans in Waco and fans of Baylor. And I was thinking about this as I did, please bear with me, last night, is I feel like in the entire Big 12, I don't know that there are two teams that are on a little more of a parallel track than Baylor and K-State. And I'll explain that. Despite K-State being ranked and Baylor being unranked preseason, I think those were both teams that several people said could compete to win the Big 12. Certainly both fan bases were feeling like this is our year. We can get to Arlington, right? Speaking of which, Baylor last won the conference in 21. Kansas State did it in 22. So you kind of had that real quick. And then there's how do we get back is the thought, right? I think both these teams, I might say, and I think I would say, it's the two best running backs in the conference, in my opinion, between Dylan Edwards and Bryson Washington. I think that those are the two best in the conference. It wouldn't surprise me if they're both first team all Big 12 at the end of the season. Quarterbacks, obviously very different styles of quarterback, but even you talking about them not letting Avery run, there's been frustration with Baylor fans that Sawyer Robertson isn't the mobility that Avery Johnson is, but he is a guy that can run, and he hasn't been this season. And there's been some Baylor fans like, Aranda's had to address it in press conferences. Like, we're telling Sawyer to run. Like, so it's funny, all the parallels here. And that's part of what makes this matchup so fascinating to me. Would you see that? Like, how do you see these two teams kind of comparing themselves to one another in that way?
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost funny hearing you lay it out, because it is truly like, obviously, if I'm a K-State guy, I'd love to trade in an offense to have the offensive firepower Baylor does. Right
yeah.
now. But, you feel like there's just a little piece missing here and there on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And that's a key player, whether that's a scheme thing, whether that's, any number of things. It feels like, okay, you have this talent to work with, this pool of athletes to work with, and you're taking away almost aspects of that, whether it's Baylor, whether it's Kansas State. But, both teams, I think, and obviously we'll talk about some health stuff with Jace Brown. We'll see what happens there down the week. Injured a little bit last week, but you have some big play guys on the field on offense for both teams. Like you said, two of the best running backs in the nation, to be perfectly honest with you. We'll see how Dylan Edwards bounced back. First week of contact in 4 weeks, really, which is always a little bit something to keep in mind. But truly, you have guys that can score anytime they touch the football. And Sawyer Robertson, you mentioned it, an absolute threat with his legs or through the air. The guy's throwing for 800 yards every single game. So no matter what happens, when I see a highlight, but it is interesting to watch. I mean, there's some parallels here and there, but it does feel like, all right, there's one switch we need to make. There's one flip we need to make here and there. And maybe it's a handful of plays. Maybe it's 8 plays in totality or 10 plays in totality where it's, okay, you flip these things. This team is a top 15 team, top 25 team. K-State, those things being don't lose to FCS schools. Not a great one, but you go one piece at a time. But I feel like there's a lot of similarities between these two players and the athletes, the coaching staffs, all of that and more.
So I need to own this, Joe. I just need to come out and own it with you so that we can stay friends. I have been noted here at Rogue Media as an Avery Johnson hater. That's a bit of an inaccurate description. I don't hate anybody playing college athletics. I root for kids to be successful and go to the league. I did say some very strong things in July and August that I thought he was kind of overrated. I was hearing like first team all Big 12, Heisman contender, and I was like, okay, like I don't see it. How would you evaluate his play? Regardless of the record, I know ultimately that's probably the most important thing quarterbacks are judged on is did you win most of the games? So we can't completely eliminate that, but like if you can kind of float above the disappointing record so far for Kansas State. You already mentioned maybe not running as much as you'd like to see. Hopefully there's an adjustment there. And by the way, against Baylor's defense, there will be opportunity. There will be ample opportunity for him to use his legs. But how would you evaluate his play this season? Were the expectations too high? What are your expectations for him the rest of this season? And where are you at in this? By the way, he's only a sophomore. So like just still a long way to go in his Kansas State career.
Well, it's interesting because truly Avery Johnson, from the moment he committed to Kansas State in 2023, the kid had the immediate like, hey, Heisman guy, this guy's leading to the college football playoff 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And so when you look at that, putting those expectations on an 18-year-old kid, that's tough. We all are guilty of it. Everyone's going to do it, myself included, where you see the flash, you see the talent, or there's a random top 5 Sports Center play where Avery's scrambling around for 35 seconds, somehow completes a pass, somehow scrambles for 47 yards and a score. Like, he has the flashes. The issue is, I feel like with Avery Johnson, the flashes aren't going to win you the games. Obviously, when it's push comes to shove, those are going to be the ones that do make the plays in the end. But the consistency was what wasn't there last year, to say the least. Like, you'd have these super high highs, like the Oklahoma State game. Guy had 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 passing, looked incredible. And then he had the BYU game, which, granted, young quarterback on the road. I never want to play a team in Utah ever again. BYU or Utah will cross that bridge later in the season, just because their fan bases are intense and awesome. But you got smacked in the mouth a little bit. This season's been interesting because, like you said, it's are wins a quarterback stat? Are they not? And when I look at Avery's play, like the North Dakota game, they win that by a field goal, by whatever the case was. And Avery throws for 300 yards, has 4 touchdowns, looks awesome. But he also has a couple of I hate this term, but the turnover-worthy plays. I will always roast people for that one just because it's like, Was it picked off or not? You know what I'm saying? But in theory, there's been the good moments, there's been the bad moments, but overall, like, he's taken steps forward in the passing game. He's finding, guys around him, but the continuity around him hasn't been there. Dylan Edwards, one of your best weapons, not healthy.
Yeah.
Jace Brown banged up. Jerron Bradley breaks his hand, or whatever the case was with the hand injury. So it's tough for me to look at it and not say what if or how will this bode going forward. So it kind of feels like the start to the season has been more of a gray area for Avery Johnson, but I like that he's turned down the turnovers. I like that he's finding guys on the right page. I like that he's completing the deep ball. But the things that you trusted last season were his legs, his athleticism, that's where it's almost like you're making a conscious effort not to be there. So overall, I'd kind of grade his performance at like 6.5 out of 10 based on what he's capable of, what we've seen to this point. Not necessarily the Heisman expectations that people place on him, but at least from what we've seen, I think he's been an above average quarterback so far, but he's not just a slightly better than average quarterback. I think he has top 5 quarterback potential in the Big 12, at least, because there's so many elite players.
So many good quarterbacks in the league, and Sawyer Robertson, one of them as well. So I want to just ask you, and you can go either side of the ball first, but first of all, how does Kansas State implement that offense, and how will they take advantage of Baylor's got one of the worst defenses in America, and I think that's driving a lot of Baylor fans crazy because, well, our head coach is supposedly one of the 5 best defensive minds in college football, and yet we're playing Art Briles era football where we're scoring on most teams at will, but can't stop a wet piece of paper from getting down the field. So how will Kansas State attack this Baylor defense, who couldn't stop Jackson Arnold and Sam Leavitt from running roughshod all over them? So I don't know how we're going to stop Avery Johnson. But then also, what does Kansas State do well defensively? And you mentioned it earlier. If Baylor's got one thing right, it is not only Sawyer Robertson, but this group of receivers is pretty deep. There's 4 or 5 who just about on any play can beat you deep, can take a ball and get yards after the catch. Michael Trigg is already arguably the best tight end Baylor's ever had, and Baylor does not have a deep history of great tight ends, but he's exciting to watch. So you were talking about weapons lacking maybe for Johnson. Sawyer Robertson has no shortage of weapons to get the ball to. How will Kansas attack Baylor on either side of the ball Saturday in Waco?
Well, I'll start defensively from Kansas State's perspective. The first thing I'd hope is that Sawyer Robertson misses the bus or doesn't show up or doesn't, like, if he can just be elsewhere at kickoff time, just don't be on the football field. Just try to just take the day off for us. That'd be great. But in reality, it's as good as drawing on a whiteboard and saying, this is what we should do. What can we do? And I think that's the issue you're at with Baylor's offense. Like, when you look at elite quarterbacks, whether it's college football, high school football, NFL football, especially as you get up into the pros, like, the best way to beat guys like Sawyer Robertson is to not give him the opportunity to affect the game by controlling line of scrimmage, controlling the football, milk the clock as much as possible. Something Kansas State hadn't been good at rushing the football until yet, like 48 hours ago, 72 hours ago. So that one's kind of an interesting juxtaposition there, but keeping the football out of his hands, step 1. 2, K-State has been a very pressure-heavy defense when it comes from slot blitzers or guys that, they're moving up in the defensive line. They switched from a 3-3-5, got a 4-man front this year, and they've had a ton more pressure. That kind of bodes with a confusing part on the other side of the football where the secondary for K-State is really young. Jacob Parrish goes to the NFL. Julius Brents isn't there. Eka Boydo's not there anymore. Guys that are all Big 12 caliber players aren't there. We've got 2 true sophomores starting out wide or on DBs, which they've been solid, but you also haven't seen an offense like Baylor. You won't see an offense like Baylor the rest of the season. So that's a question that I'm going to look at and say, can Kansas State not surrender the massive deep plays? Like Dave Aranda, K-State's got a defensive head coach in Chris Kleiman, a guy that's a former defensive back himself, been a defensive guru for years. But the defense has given up big play after big play after big play, which is honestly the worst case scenario against Baylor. But that's going to be the big one for me is how does the secondary handle it? Because the linebackers, you've got Austin Romaine, you've got some world-class guys on the D-line, got some guys in the linebacker room. But the secondary will be interesting. VJ Payne having a down year. Quay Moss has looked good. Gunnar Maldonado, slow start to the season. Transfer from Arizona, had a pick last week, a huge pass breakup. So that's going to be the matchup I'm watching for K-State defensively is how are you going to handle all of these weapons that Sawyer Robertson has? Because truly, you can't pick and choose. You can't say, all right, let's make Sawyer beat us, or all right, let's make the rushing attack beat us. You don't want to choose either. You just hope everybody across the board has an okay day. That's what you're looking for. Likelihood is not very likely, to say the least. Offensively for Kansas State, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be the quarterback run game. It's going to be that RPO option with Dylan Edwards. You're either going to hold on to the football or you're either going to get it pulled and they're going to hit somebody across the middle, which K-State, it's a different offense with Dylan Edwards. We talk about that. Joe Jackson, if I'm a defensive end right there and Joe Jackson's a solid player, I won't look at the backfield the same way I do with 2 and 3 back there. When Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards are anywhere near each other, I have to have my keys right. I've got to have my checks right. I've got to have everybody penciled up to know, okay, if this ball goes outside, can I match this guy who runs, a 4-3 on the nose to either side of the boundaries, or can I be straight, north and south for Avery Johnson to keep it? At that same time, if I cheat down, they've got talented enough receivers. If Chase Brown's healthy, Jerron Tibbs has been he's been pretty good this season. He's healthy. He's one of the few guys that have stayed on the football field. Are we going to be able to cheat up and still get back there and make some plays in the secondary? So I think the quarterback run game is going to be big. Avery Johnson ran for about 75 last week, which feels like 175 based off the first 3 games. So I think it's going to be a big aspect, but it'll be that matchup is, can Baylor keep Kansas State from milking the clock, holding on to the football, and can Kansas State not give up these massive 80-yard touchdowns?
Well, listen, if Kansas State tries to milk the clock, but every time that they run the ball, there's a 14-yard gain like Baylor's been prone to give up this season, it's going to be hard to milk the clock.
That's true about that.
I in some ways I see this, Joe. And I said this about the Arizona State game, and I was dead wrong. By the way, I was dead wrong about the Baylor Arizona State matchup, but I'm going to say it again anyway, and try not to be wrong twice. I really could see this being a shootout, man. I struggle to see how Baylor's going to stop Johnson unless they can force a couple turnovers, which they've not been good at. Baylor's not been good at forcing turnovers and getting takeaways this season. But I think you have to, because with Edwards and Johnson both on the field, Baylor's not done well against the quarterback run, and they're giving up big plays over the top as well. So I really see some danger there for Baylor's defense. But I also, kind of like you, I'm like, man, if Sawyer and Bryson and Josh and Ashton are all on the field, I have trouble seeing how Baylor doesn't drop 35, give or take, either. So I kind of see this game potentially being a high-scoring, high-flying, big plays both ways kind of game. What are your thoughts on what happened Saturday? Any idea what we're going to see? If you had to, I know it's Monday, so we've got all week to kind of hear about practice and what's going on, and make official predictions later in the week. But as of today, how do you see this one going down?
I think my energy changes throughout the week. Early on, I'm a little nervous. Get closer to game day, I'm like, Cats by 90. They're going to win it. They're going to be great. And then you're about 2 hours from kickoff, and you're like, maybe I don't want to try to contain a guy that's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick at the quarterback position. It's so fun for my Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I think you're right on. It feels like it's going to be a classic Big 12 football game. Not that either defense is going to not get stops or not, make the big plays. Like, it feels like it'll be which team punches out a football, which team, is able to force a turnover and get, steal an extra possession or two, because truly the offenses are going to be the 2 stars of the show. K-State's defense has had better days. They've been all right the last couple games, I suppose, but that Army game chewed them up. That said, Army's kind of one of the worst teams to try to prepare for, because that rushing attack is just, it's brutal every single time with the triple option. But I feel like this one I'm a little bit nervous about, because if I had to make a prediction, it's early and I don't want to be doubting my Cats or anything, but which of these 2 offenses do I think is more likely to score 40 points on the other team's defense? And for me right now, that rests with Baylor. I think you're at home. I think you have the more talented quarterback as of right now, who's playing a little bit better. But Kansas State, is that the team we saw last week, or is it the team we saw the first 4? Because if Dylan Edwards goes out there and rushes for 200 yards, does his thing, finds, wide open space with Avery mixing it up as well, that's going to be a tough thing to stop. So it's tricky, but as of right now, my brain would probably say Baylor takes it by a touchdown late. That said, I have no idea what to gauge for this K-State team. I wish I had a better answer, but it is truly like flipping a coin. Are they going to be elite top 25 team, Kansas State? Are they going to be the team that didn't get off the bus the last 3 games?
It's so funny you say that. Like, which team are we going to see? Baylor's had 2 radically different performances in the last 2 weeks against Arizona State. Easily the best defensive game for Baylor of the season, because I thought that one would be a shootout. Defense, despite being down 3-0 in the turnover differential, holds Arizona State to 24 points until the last-second field goal, loses the game for Baylor. Pretty remarkable performance. But the offense was uncharacteristically stifled Meanwhile, every other game this season, offense is putting up 40 plus without blinking, and the defense is giving up big plays left and right. So I don't know which K-State will we see, which Baylor will we see. Here's what it comes down to for me, Joe, and you are singing higher praise of Sawyer Robertson than even some Baylor fans right now. I think in a close ball game, turnovers will matter. Like, that's the only reason Baylor lost to Arizona State at home. You can't lose a turnover battle 3-0 and expect to get a win. In fact, I think it's pretty remarkable they only lost that game by 3 points. So I think turnovers will be the difference. You nailed it. And then I think if it comes down to who has the ball last, bro, and I'd be interested in your reaction to this. Sawyer Robertson's a funny player, man. I don't know how much you've actually watched him play this season. Not 80%. We'll say 60% of the time, he looks pretty pedestrian. And I don't say that as like a knock. Like, I say that as like, he looks like a college quarterback. He makes some good throws. He misses some throws. He makes great decisions. He makes a couple decisions that make you scratch your head. When you need a play, it's 4th and 12. There's 2 minutes left. He turns into Peyton Manning, and I don't know how he does it. I don't, because he can be inconsistent an entire ball game. And when we need 2 touchdowns to get to overtime with SMU, when we need a throw on 4th down to keep in the game with Arizona State, he is going to make magic happen with his arm. And for that reason, if the game's close in the 4th, I feel very good about Baylor's chances. I do fear Baylor has started some games really slow this season. I think my biggest fear as a Baylor fan would be if Kansas State can come in and jump and get out to an early lead. I think that's going to be a key for the Wildcats is, can you start fast in the building in Waco?
I mean, that's a good point. K-State's defense plays so much better when they're ahead because they know they can take a little bit off. You know, you're not going to get over our heads, but we'll keep you in front of us. We might surrender some plays here and there, but we're not going to make the big mistakes. When it's crunch time, I don't trust this defense to execute down the stretch. They did against UCF. They let off the gas a little bit, then came up with 2 huge plays. Quay Moss stripping the ball away, crazy interception down the sideline to the point where UCF's quarterback was looking like, how did he catch that? But, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is these 2 quarterbacks, like, both are athletic. Both are going to be able to find something through the air. Like, I don't trust the defense as much as I trust the offenses. But K-State, like you said, they haven't turned the football over much, which is funny because they've been stopped a lot, which is basically a turnover. But Avery's got 1 pick this season, and we've lost a lot of games. And that's kind of concerning, is the idea of, you know, not concerning, excuse me, it's optimistic in the sense that, hey, you're not turning the football over. If you get those extra drives, you get into their opponent's territory, if you can stay on top of things, like, that's a scary team to work with that doesn't turn the football over, that has 2 guys that can break free for 80 yards at any given moment with Johnson or Edwards. There's a lot laterally in this offense that I'm starting to like more and more, especially with Edwards back. So I feel like if you start getting to that point where, hey, Baylor's offense is scoring super quick, Kansas State's offense is scoring super quick, which of the team's going to have the football last and which defense is going to be not super gassed?
Yeah, good thoughts. I'll tell you the other thing that's going to make a difference. And it made a difference against Arizona State for us. Dave Aranda, and I love him. Like, there's part of me that loves him for this, and there's part of me that it makes me want to pull my hair out. Will not take a field goal. He will not take 3. In fact, it is actually like jaw-dropping, gasp out loud, shocking when the field goal team comes out, because he is so analytics driven and so confident in this offensive kind of personnel that we go for just every 4th down, even if we're on like the 10. Like, it's kind of insane. And so I'm also thinking, I think it's going to be interesting to see how both these coaches approach, 4th and 6 on the 20. Dave's likely to go for it. So can you convert? Or if you're Chris Kleiman, you said Kansas State gets stopped sometimes. I don't know, man. If Kansas State hits 2 field goals and Baylor doesn't convert 2 4th downs, it happened against Arizona State. Baylor went for a 4th down in the first half, deep in the red zone, didn't convert. Then you lose the game by 3. And it's easy in hindsight, right, to say, man, we should have taken the 3. None of us would be saying that if we'd converted that 4th. But I wonder if we don't look back and go, man, Kansas State hit 2 or 3 field goals and Baylor didn't. Like that, like, this is one of those games where that could almost also be a difference.
I'll sing the praise in an area I didn't think I would at the beginning of the season. K-State found a kicker. And Chris Tennant was there for 4 years, was a stud, nailed the 50-plus yarder against Kansas to keep that Sunflower showdown streak at 16 or 17, whatever it is. But I was worried about the kicking game. Special teams hadn't been good. It hasn't been Kansas State special teams the last 2 or 3 seasons. Now they found their guy, man. This kid, Luis Rodriguez, was kicking at College of the Canyons. I have no idea where that is. I'd assume somewhere in the Canyons. But the kid is perfect on the season. He's got a big leg. Early in Dublin, I was questioning. I was like, are they going to trust this kid to kick in the elements? They didn't. And looking back, that was stupid. The season goes on. The kid's like 5 for 5, 6 for 6, 7 for 7. Hasn't missed an extra point. The kid has absolutely been nails from anywhere on the field. He doesn't have the Iowa State kicker's leg per se, but man, 50 yards and in, or even 52, 53, he's an absolute weapon to have in the kicking game.
Let's hope Baylor uses ours, because Connor Hawkins hit a 53-yarder against SMU to play hero in that one. So maybe Dave just needs to use him. Joe, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much. Again, tell everybody where they can find you, how to engage your content. And are you going to be in Waco? Are you coming down for the game?
I can't make the game this weekend. We've got some family stuff going on. Unfortunately, we have. Looking back at it, if I could have established myself in a different manner, would not have been as extrovert as I would, because we've gotten invited to 100 different weddings this fall. Not been fun. That one's on me. But yeah, I won't be able to make it down this weekend, unfortunately. But yeah, Joe Tillery on YouTube. I'm always talking about the Cats. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll probably say some weird stuff during game day. But man, it's an honor to be here. I'm excited to watch this game. Outcome, whatever the case is. Obviously, it's Monday now. We'll see how this thing progresses, but just excited, and I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been nice getting to know you.
Hey, you too, man. Everybody go check out Joe. Give him a follow on X. Support his content. We're thankful. It's going to be a fun one on Saturday against the Cats. This has been a special bonus episode of Please Bear With Me. Make sure to talk to my friends, Kelly and the crew at Gather & Co. Waco. If you need any remodeling done around your home, especially those outdoor spaces or those bathrooms, man, update your bathroom. It isn't a brand new bathroom like the greatest luxury you don't think about, but you absolutely want? Yes, it is. Call my friends at Gather & Co. We'll talk to you Sunday. We'll react to the Baylor Kansas State game. Of course, please come out to the Green and Gold Game Day show at the Camp Finfo tailgate. Matt Mosley, Faith Lynch, and I will be there 3 hours prior to kickoff, taking you all the way up to kick on Green and Gold Game Day. Like and subscribe. Please bear with me on YouTube. I know we're live right now on X. We will post this on YouTube. Would love your interaction over there. Appreciate you very much. We'll talk to you.
We are Rogue Media Sports.